Hey guys, Tony here, and in today's video, we're going to do a full review of the Optoma UHC70LV, which is a 5000 lumens dual laser home cinema projector with Dolby Vision certification. We will go over the specs, installation, brightness and contrast, as well as discuss the Pure Engine Ultra, which is at the heart of this projector. This is not a sponsored video, and all thoughts and opinions are mine alone, but if you'd like to support the work I do here on YouTube, consider hitting the like button on the video, but let's get into it. When it comes to the specs of the UHC70LV, we have a 4K UHD dual laser with 5000 lumens reaching 95% of the DCI-P3 color space. As mentioned, there is certification for Dolby Vision and HDR10+, the former requiring a lot of light to produce the correct tone mapping. So at 5000 lumens, we do have a very bright display with 30,000 hours of use. There is also the Pure Engine Ultra at the heart of this projector, which is Optoma's next generation visual enhancement and color customization engine that I will go into more detail later, as this alone gives a lot of customization and control over the display. There is also a 1.6 times zoom and vertical and horizontal lens shift. However, these are both manual controls, and you also focus by turning the lens. As such, there is no lens memory with this projector. The dimensions are 498.1mm wide by 331.1mm deep and 171mm high, and weighs in at only 9.3 kilograms. There is support for 3D, which I'll cover off later, and the projector is made with a shiny black plastic, which is pretty standard for most Optoma projectors. There is a flap at the top which gives access to the controls. Again, I have some thoughts on this which I'll discuss later in the video, but all in all, it's a decent looking and well-spec'd home cinema projector. There is support for up to 4K 120Hz with ALLM support for gaming, so there is plenty of support for gaming, as well as 24Hz for movies natively. I also noticed it was quiet for most of the time I was using it at around 25 dB, which is really good. We also have frame interpolation support, which is inside the Pure Engine Ultra settings to do motion smoothing for sports and other higher frame rate productions. One thing I did appreciate was the backlit remote, which was easy to use and navigate around the menu with. I found that the settings in the menu system were quite easy to control and configure. Priced at 8,000 Australian dollars, this places the UHC70LV in competition with the Sony, JVC, Epson and BenQ entry level offerings. So let's see how it stacks up. Brightness is rated at 5000 lumens and the theoretical contrast is 3.2 million to 1. However, in room, I found it to be pretty standard for a DLP projector, although once the laser dimming was enabled, it went to another level. Some things I noticed during the installation is that you cannot mount this projector the right way up on a shelf. It only has a very short vertical and horizontal shift allowance, which I was told was to keep the cost of the lens down, so the 100% shift is not available. It's only around 10 to 15%. This meant that when I went to my friend Ben's place to review it, we were unable to do so because to mount this up high, we needed to have a pole. The reason we couldn't invert it on the shelf is that there is a flap all the way along the front, and if upside down on a shelf, you cannot access the manual controls. So I had to abandon reviewing it at Ben's and bring it back to my theater room, where I was only able to get a 120-inch size screen on my 135-inch due to the throw ratio. I cannot get it further back without dismantling my chairs, and I wasn't up to doing that for this review. It still is a large enough screen to showcase the projector properly, so I progressed with the review. There are two ways to install this projector. You can have it at table height the right way up, or you will need to have it inverted on a pole mount from the ceiling. In the case of my review, I had it placed on my chair so that I could square up the image without using any keystone correction and to show you the full native display. You can use keystone, corner warping and other alignment tools if you don't have the perfect position for it, but I would recommend not using any of these if you can avoid it so that you can get the native pixels on the screen. Get it as close to center as you can and in line with the top of the screen, and you should be able to aim it perfectly. As mentioned, you use manual controls for shift, zoom and focus, and because of this there is only a 16:9 mode, no anamorphic modes or lens memory options with this projector. Inside each of these modes you can configure a number of settings in the Pure Engine Ultra, which are pure contrast, pure light, pure color, pure motion and pure detail. The Pure Engine Ultra is Optoma's proprietary image processing engine, which can make adjustments to each of the settings via an algorithm. In my opinion, some settings work better than others, so I will give you some demos so that you can see how the mode affects each image. Pure contrast. This one appears to increase the luma value of all the pixels over a certain threshold, and this makes it appear that the black levels are darker than they may be because the difference between the darker and the brighter areas. I preferred this setting on 1. For pure light, this setting seems to globally increase the brightness of the image, but not in the conventional way. It may work when you just increase the default brightness setting. I also like this on 1 or not on at all. For pure color, this one was interesting because when I had the projector in HDR mode, for example, the image appeared undersaturated, but when I put it onto pure color 1, the saturation came back in. However, in Dolby Vision vivid mode, if I had it enabled, it's too saturated. So I think that you need to use this one situationally according to the color mode. For pure motion, this one is used to interpolate frames to make motion smoother. I like it set to 1. I know purists would prefer to have it disabled, especially for 24p content, but I quite like it, and on most projectors I always turn it on to the lowest setting. For pure detail, this mode I have it disabled. As you can see when I toggle through the options 1 to 3, it seems to add a thickness and detail to the image, which I personally don't like. I think this could work for sports or gaming, but I personally wouldn't use it for movies. But it's there if you want it. I will go through some of the demos to show you how it looks under various options. When it comes to the brightness, this projector has 5000 lumens, and I can tell you that it is very bright indeed. Having a dual laser light engine and 5000 lumens means that it can easily hit the targets for Dolby Vision, and Optoma have told me that it's the world's first certified projector for Dolby Vision, which I did question as I have reviewed other brands with Dolby Vision before, but there could be something about this type of projector or light engine which gave Optoma the right to that claim. Needless to say, in all of the modes, there was no lacking for brightness or detail, and I found with certain brightness modes, you get a pretty great contrast between light and dark areas. In completely dark movies, I did notice the usual grey tinge, but the one thing that I will say is there was no crushing of the details in the darker areas. The high brightness means that the details were able to be illuminated, and with the laser dimming, you still get a nice pop of colour and detail. I found the laser dimming algorithm to be pretty decent in dynamic black mode 1, whereas mode 2 and mode 3 it seemed to jerk a little, especially when opening up a menu from within a movie scene. I have witnessed this before on other projectors with laser dimming, so I kept it in mode 1 and it seemed to work pretty well. You could also manually choose a brightness power setting, and at 100 it is a light cannon. I had it lowered to around 75%, and that was pretty nice, but I do think that the dynamic black mode 1 is the best one to have it set to if you want a nice balance out of black into brighter scenes. During the movie demos, I was quite impressed at how cinematic the image looks in pretty much all of the demos, but I did want to look at the different movies which have different modes available. For Dolby Vision, I tested out A Star Is Born, and during the song there are a lot of blues and reds and things that I wanted to see how it performed, and the image was very vibrant and saturated. I think that the best mode for this is Dolby Vision Vivid with the pure light set to 1, pure color off, pure motion to 1, and pure detail off. For HDR, I tested Lucy, which is a very sharp and grain-free movie shot on a 6K camera, so it's one of the best movies to demo with the projector to see its performance. This one surprised me because I set all of the Pure Engine Ultra settings to a value for 1, and the image just popped off the screen. In other lower quality movies, the pure detail setting just didn't look quite right, but for Lucy, the image was super sharp, nicely colored, and brightness and contrast was perfect. Check out the demo and you will see as I toggle the settings just how much better it looks. I think if there is any grain in a movie, the pure detail seems to add a thickness to the grain and just makes it worse. This is just my observation. For SDR, I tested out the Blu-ray for Den of Thieves, so SDR mode in 1080p. I found that the upscaling was pretty decent, and in the Pure Engine Ultra, I only left off the color and detail and found that the picture looked like a 4K. I think that for SDR mode, Reference was the mode I liked the most, as it didn't seem to add any funny artifacting to the picture, whereas I could see that in the Vivid mode. So, as I have a Lumagen video processor, I really wanted to test out if the UHC70LV was able to do Rec 2020 in the DCI color space for SDR or the natural mode of the projector. There is a mode called WCG, which stands for Wide Color Gamut, and when switching to this mode, I am able to see the expanded DCI color space, which allows the Lumagen to tone map the HDR signal, which has the BT 2020 data in it, across to the native mode. The importance of this is that when the Lumagen does any kind of HDR processing, you get the wider color space similar to what you would get in HDR, except that the tone mapping and the gamma is all done by the Lumagen for the most accurate results. I was able to test out a few movies with the Lumagen and the results were excellent. I found the colors were on point, the brightness and the contrast were also rendered out really nicely as well. So the UHC70LV does support all of the main 3D formats and also frame packing, which is what is needed for Blu-rays in 3D. I was able to test out a couple of my favorite 3D movies and it was able to do a pretty decent job. There was a little bit of layering, but overall it was quite nice and immersive. I can't actually show you what it looks like, but my feedback is that it works pretty well. So where does the UHC70LV sit in the market? Well, in Australia it retails for $8,000 and that places it around the Sony 5000 and the Epson LS12000B or the BenQ 5700 price point. The Epson is the only one in that price range which can do the electronic lens shift and memory with anamorphic modes, as the BenQ and the Sony are also manual projectors like the Optoma, so you would need to weigh that up if you need those modes, as in my opinion, once you set it you can forget it if you are on a 16:9 screen. For me, I actually like the manual focus only because I like to make micro adjustments to get the focus really dialed in. But again, that is just a decision that you, the consumer, would need to make. My opinions about this projector is that it is a very high quality and sharp picture. Having the DLP light engine means loads of brightness, and with the dual laser you get a nice coverage of the DCI color space, as well as the image is really nice and vibrant. I think that the biggest advantage for this projector is the Pure Engine Ultra, which allows you to fine-tune the image to something that suits your taste without having to play around too much. I worked out very quickly what settings I liked and I was able to get the image dialed in very nicely. I think this projector will suit someone that has a blacked out dedicated home theater, as well as someone with masking panels to really help make the image pop. But there is a lot of brightness so that you could easily do up to 150-inch or wider screen and still get 100 nits without any issue. So guys, I'd like to thank Optoma for sending the projector in for the review, and I have really enjoyed learning the ins and outs of this projector, and if you want to buy one, I will leave links down in the description. Anyway guys, I have more reviews coming very soon, but that's it for this one. You'll catch me in the next one. Bye for now.